Now, I know this will come as a complete surprise to Nick, but I'm not a Tory, and I will probably never vote Conservative. But I do want to say to the Prime Minister, congratulations on your commitment to continue spending 0.7% of our national income on overseas aid if the Tories win the election. It would have been so easy for Mrs May to have succumbed to the campaign led by the likes of the Daily Mail and the Daily Express to get the Tory government to scrap the commitment. She didn't. Instead, in effect, she told the editors of these papers where to get off. She decided that as the 5th largest economy in the world, we had a moral responsibility to continue to support people in the poorest parts of the world. Of course, she came under pressure to do so from the likes of Bill Gates, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and the Christian wing of her own party. But it took guts for her to take a principled stand when it would have been so easy to have scrapped the pledge and got universal applause from the right-wing press. Mrs May, on this issue, I'm proud of you.
Gregory, what a load of nonsense you've just spoken there, my friend. And I do tend to like you, but I have to disagree on this one. I think foreign aid is an incredibly toxic brand at the moment. I understand your sentiments, but just to put some perspective on this, we spend over £30 million a day on foreign aid. That's £30 million per day on foreign aid. I think that is an astonishing amount of money. And in your intro, you just said, helping the poorest parts of the world, I quote you. We send money to countries who are spending their own millions of pounds on things like space stations and stuff like that. These are not the poorest parts of the world. That's my first point. My second point is there is an entire lack of transparency on what good this is actually doing. What are we achieving with these 30-odd million pounds per day?
Well, I spend a bit of my time every year in Uganda where I support certain projects, and I've watched what the DFID money is being spent on there, and I think it's remarkably effective.
What has it been spent on?
I watched one project where, a big employment project, where 80% of the people who were unemployed have become employed or at college for the last 2 years because of the money that was spent by DFID. And I think that's all over the place. I mean, there's loads of figures that you can bring out. But Michael Howard, former leader of the Tory party, said it best when he said, over the last 5 years, UK aid has helped to give 65 million people clean water and better hygiene. We've seen over the last 15 years how British aid has brought the mosquito nets that helped stop 6 million people dying from malaria, has provided the training that ensured 5 million childbirths happened safely, and has given 11 million children a chance in life by supporting them through education. Now, Michael Howard was hardly a raving lefty, but what he believed was that this has value. It also gives us value. I mean, London is probably the development capital of the world, in terms of the people who work in here, because of this money. And that gives us real kudos, I think, around the world.
I think I get completely why she's done this, because we do need to look out. With Brexit coming, we need to look outward looking. It will give us a big presence on an international stage. It will give us a voice and some clout. However, I do also see where people in this country are coming from when they get angry, when our social care service is on its knees, when a story last week, elderly people are dying in their homes every single week because there's not enough carers to go and get them. So I can completely see why people in this country think, why not give some money to foreign aid, maybe not 0.7% of the GDP, but give some money, but also look after people at home as well. I completely get why Theresa May has done this. I kind of half agree with you, because I think it's a good move. But I think people looking into this country will actually see and say, why are people outside getting one? And especially when you just touched on it there, India and Pakistan are funding their own space programs, and yet we send 300 million to Pakistan and 186 million to India. Why are we doing that? But the key is what Theresa May said. Things she might get people on side with, as she said, this has to be managed properly.
Well, let's have a look.
If it's managed properly,
let's just have a quick look at what she actually said.
Let's be clear, the 0.7% commitment remains and will remain. What we need to do, though, is to look at how that money is spent and make sure that we are able to spend that money in the most effective way. I'm very proud of the record that we have of the children around the world who are being educated as a result of what the British government, the British taxpayer, is doing in terms of its international aid.
She's clearly right, isn't she, that you need to constantly look at how the money is spent.
Right.
And make sure it's spent as effectively as it
I'm
can.
delighted you go regularly to Uganda, and I'm sure you have meaningful discussions when you get there. But that still doesn't explain. Why did you have a cock in your hand at the start of this? I never mind all of that. What is going on?
First of all, let me just show you. That's me with
in
this.
Uganda.
I was in Uganda. Was with one of the groups that I helped support there. I gave both my wife and I a chicken.
Yes.
And of course, we said, look, we don't want the chicken. What do we do about it? But actually, in the end, it would have been so. I mean, the chickens were quite.
Where are the chickens now?
Yeah.
Well,
they've come home to
we
roost,
put them in the
Nick.
back of the car and took them back to Kampala with us. So we ended up in Kampala with 2 chickens.
Well, I want to hear what you've got to say
gave
against foreign aid before I knock you back.
OK, let's go for it. So rather than going... It was interesting, you were talking about how important... I think you said London is the international aid capital of the world.
Yeah.
The UK is not London. And I would respectfully suggest, rather than going to Kampala, go to Keighley or go to Kettering, where there are people who can't get an NHS service that in some instances, and I know they're not mutually exclusive, but they've been paying in for decades, and mum can't get her hip done or granddad can't get his operation because the funds simply aren't there. I think there are 2 different things. Should we be involved in foreign aid? Yes, of course we should. If there's some hideous disaster, and Britain, as a relatively wealthy country, probably not quite as rich as we think, but of course we should be helping. Tell me how spending £5 million on the Ethiopian equivalent of the Spice Girls has improved the lot of any of the people who are paying taxes to this country. Sending money to North Korea. Yeah. North Korea, for God's sake. Without even getting into Michelle's excellent examples of a country like India, whose economy will overtake us. No, never mind in the top 10. Oh, we're only doing top 10? India's economy will overtake us probably tomorrow afternoon at 3. Why are we doing it?
But you've got to avoid this thing about all this money could be spent here. Anyway, we're not going to need it because Boris has promised us all that money from the
side of the bus.
Brexit people on the side of the bus. That's all going to go on the NHS. So it's only 2 years away, and the NHS is going to be saved by this vast amount of money. One is, as you're right, they're not mutually exclusive. You should have a humane development policy as well as ensuring that your National Health Service and your care system is working effectively. The care system doesn't work effectively because we've cut local authority grants from central government year by year by year by year, and suddenly we have a crisis. The health service, probably the same, although it hasn't been cut by anywhere near as much. If we want to improve those things, we've got to take that decision to tax people more and spend it on those things.
As Greg says, politics is about choices, but foreign aid and social care is not either or, and we can't see it like that. And you can't always say, look at Kettering or Keighley. By the way, Lindsay Lohan tweeted, "What is Kettering?" Do you remember when she... And then she had to go and turn on... She was asked to go and turn on the Christmas tree lights.
That's brilliant.
And I think that it's also unfair to talk about the 5 million that's gone on the equivalent of the Spice Girls.
Why is it unfair?
Because these are obscuring the real issue, which is £1 on the ground spent in one of these countries, from Pakistan to Bangladesh, is £1 very well spent, because what it really means, speaking of chickens, is that you prevent problems at source. You don't have migration.
How many stories do we hear
Carol,
about?
if you do spend money, let's say, on infant mortality or malaria, or clean water, you don't have people wanting to come here,
We
Carol,
know some of this money is going into the pockets of dictators. Yes. We know that. We know
not
that
a huge amount. That is disputed.
Sorry,
that DFID has disputed.
We don't know where
they say
it's going.
Only 3 million rather than 300 million.
It's been used to build mansions and villas for rich people.
But if you only read the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday and the Express, you would believe that.
Hold
that's
on.
not true. That's not what I've seen.
Yes.
Guys, let me refer you to the Commons Public Accounts Committee, and this speaks to the audit trail. The Public Accounts Committee dismissed DFID's claim that it loses just 0.3% of its budgets to fraudsters, with this parliamentary committee saying that the figures, quotes, do not seem credible given the risks they face overseas. They ordered civil servants to go away and produce better estimates. So I think there is an audit trail.
Sure, but that 0.3%...
Did I say 0.03%?
Yeah, that's right. It's the right figure, and I agree with that.
You don't believe it's that low?
No, I don't believe it's that low, because actually no other government department is that low, so why would overseas aid, which is much riskier, it's likely to be higher? I agree with you. Let's have the audit trial. Let's do what she said. Let's look and make sure we're spending it wisely and as popular as we can. But let's not say we're not going to support countries and people around the world who are poorer than we are, significantly poorer than we are, because it does have an impact. It has an impact in all sorts of ways.
But also, I think for me, one of the problems is when you enshrine something in law, you get to the point where you're scrabbling around because you have to spend that money because you've committed to it. So then you do end up funding things like the Ethiopian Spice Girls or whatever it was because you have to meet that target. But anyway, we could go on and on, so let's stop it there.